Good morning, guys. We made a video on how we built a $70 spool, and we've been getting a lot of questions on how we finished the rear axle. So today we're going to make a video showing you how we went from the center spool using the Miata axles and hooked up to the wheels with the hubs. We're going to show you two different methods that we've used and let you guys decide which method you want to use in going forward. One of them uses used Polaris RZR hubs or spindles, and the other one uses Mini Cooper solid hubs. So we'll show you both methods. So this is the first method we're going to show today, and what this is this is the rear spindle off a Polaris 800 RZR. And we were able to get these off of eBay. We bought a left and a right, and we got them for $21 a piece on eBay. They were used, but once we got them, we didn't understand what the difference was between left and right, and we think the only thing is where the brake caliper bolts on. So technically you could buy two rights, two lefts. It doesn't matter what you need. So we bought these spindles off of eBay. The second thing we did is we purchased this hub part. I believe we got them from Rock Auto. They were very cheap, in that $12 to $15 area, maybe even a little less. And we pressed them into the hub, or press them into the spindle. So this fits in the same as a regular Polaris hub would fit in. The problem with the Polaris hub, if you press that in and use the stock Polaris hub, the spline is not quite the same. It's still a 26 spline, but the diameter is bigger around on the Polaris joints. So if you use the Polaris hub, it doesn't mesh with the Miata axles, so you have to do that. The other thing we did, since we bought this separate, is we decided to press in bearings. So since it was a part and a used thing, we put in new bearings. Those bearings were about $10 a piece. We just figured since we had everything apart, it made sense to do that. The last thing that we did to them is we put new bushing kits in these. Now, we probably wouldn't have put bushing kits in, but we built our own A-arms for the machine, and we used this bushing setup for the bearing parts on the front A-arms. So we were able to get a whole kit of those to do the entire front A-arms and the rear spindles for about $45, $50. I don't know if we got them on Amazon or eBay or somewhere, but they're readily available. So this is completely rebuilt to be brand new to go back into the buggy. So that's the first method we're going to show today. So we're over at the cart now, and all we needed to do, we're running a 3-link swing arm here for our setup, but all we need to do during fab was get these welded on and the right distance. Now, since we're running a 3-link, we didn't have to be perfectly vertical on this to keep the correct camber. We're able to adjust it with our radius rods here. So it was a very easy setup for us. So we've got the Miata axle, we've got the Polaris hub, and we're just going to drop this through here. Line up punch to get it through. I had to knock my pocket. And that's the setup for this hub assembly. Now if we take it out with the plunge, you have to set up, because on this CV you only have plunge on this end, so you have to get this distance critical so you don't get a bind in your plunge. Now, we don't have a tape measure right here, but we can go down to here and up to there. I think last time we measured, we were running about a 16-inch throw on it. Now, in reality, our shock doesn't have that much, and we do get a little bit of toe out at the very bottom, so we're not going down that far. We're running in this range, and it stays very good for us. It's very, very free movement on there. So that's the first setup that we're going to show today. We'll have links in the description on what parts we used, where we got them, for the Miata hub and the RZR. We'll probably just show you the part description on Partzilla. It'll be for a new part. You don't want to buy a new part. They'll be 150 bucks, but at least you'll get the make model of what exactly we used. And again, we don't think there's any difference between using the left and right other than the caliper mount. And again, if you're running a solid rear axle on the spool, you won't mount your caliper here anyway, so doesn't matter. Last thing we should mention about this Miata hub is this Miata hub comes with a 4x100 bolt pattern. There's not a lot of easy to find rims if you're looking for aftermarket stuff, used stuff in the ATV market that have a 4x100 pattern. So what we did in this case is we decided to make an adapter plate. And again, we had these laser cut when we did the same job. These were made out of 3/8 metal. We weren't sure how thick we should do it, but in hindsight, we wouldn't go to 3/8 again. We'd just use 1/4 inch. But again, the price difference between using a 3/8 and a 1/4 inch was only about $3. I had it quoted both ways. We pressed out the studs. We pushed them into this side, and then we just put a spot weld on the back of them. So this fits on. We run bolts through and bolt that on. Come to the back side. One thing to be aware of if you use this setup, when you put the nut on the back side, you have to use a low profile nut because the nut does extend down into this case a little bit. So you can either grind off a couple tenths of an inch on the nut, or you can just get low profile nuts. That's what we did. And so when you put your bolt through, you put the nut on, torque them down, and we made a simple wheel adapter. I'm sure you can buy wheel adapters to go from this 4x100, or you can just use 4x100 rims. With this setup right here on this cart, we're running a offset of 4 inches by 2 inches on the rims. So it's the rims are 4 inches deep on the inbound side and 2 inches dish on the outside. With that, we're getting an outside dimension track of 63 inches. The trails that we ride on have a maximum width vehicle of 65 inches. So that was kind of important to us to keep it under 65. We've never been measured, nobody pays that much attention, but it just made sense to keep it under 65. So this setup with the adapter plate and a 4x2 offset rim, we're getting 63 inches. It's an important number. We'll talk about the next method that we used here in a minute. Here we go, we're at the second method of what we've used these Miata axles with. So on this one, we're running a Mini Cooper hub, and it's a spindle hub assembly. So you get the hub, and it's pressed into the spindle here, and this works just like a normal car does. So the only thing you have to do is you have to make a mount for these 4 bolts. We used a piece of 1/4 inch plate, used a hole saw, cut it out, drop it in, put these 4 bolts in right back here, and the thing is mounted. Couple things about this. This was our first try at it, and one of the things that we should have done is we should have had this box extended back, because what happened was when we made this swing arm, we don't have a lot of clearance to reach into the wheel. So on this wheel that we've had to use, this is the opposite. This has a 4-inch dish on the outside and a 2-inch dish in the inside. So it causes us to get a lot wider track width because it pushes the wheel out. So when we built the swing arm, we should have built what they call more of a J-arm. It should have been straight and then came out. And I've seen where people will just use a piece of round pipe and extend it back a little bit and then weld the pipe on. It gives you the reach in. If you do that, you've got to make sure that your knuckle doesn't hit anything, bind. So the pipe's got to be big enough to allow for travel, so your knuckle on your swing arm doesn't work. The other thing I want to mention about this, and we apologize, we're out in the field today, and we just thought we'd shoot a quick video in the morning. But we couldn't get this nut off. We didn't have the right socket here. So I wanted to show you how this goes together and take this piece off. But one of the things you have to do on the back end, in between the hub and the Miata axle, you need to put about a half-inch spacer in there to load the bearing, because this axle stub is a little too long. When you tighten the nut, it bottoms out and doesn't put any pressure to load the bearings. So we just used a piece of 1.25 inch or 2-inch heavy wall pipe, about 1/4 inch, just sliced it off in a bandsaw and made a spacer a half-inch thick and tightened them together that preloads the bearing. And if you decide to go with this route, when you make the two together by hand, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You'll see that it's not going to push on the bearing, so you need that spacer in there. So these Mini Cooper hubs, I believe we bought for about 55 bucks. So you can have about the same price, because over on the other setup we did, we got the RZR spindles for 21 bucks. We got the Miata hub for $15, and then we put new bearings in for 10 bucks. So it's about the same price to do each. The difference is you'll find these at any O'Reilly's or AutoZone, this or that. I'm expecting after this video, the RZR hubs that we list are going to get hard to find on eBay for a period of time. I think some people are going to suck those up. So this might be the method that you have to go with. So that's one thing. Now, with this hub, it's the same thing. This is a 4x100 hub on this one. So the rims we were going to use and we selected for are the standard 4x110s. So we just made a template, re-drilled them at 4x110s, and then pressed in studs. These were actually threaded holes, and we didn't want to use that type of a nut, so we just went to AutoZone and picked up some 10mm studs, wheel studs, and pressed them in. They're about $1 a piece. So we just made a template, drilled these for a 4x110. On the red Kart, we actually have a set of aluminum tires that we'll mount up, or aluminum rims that we're going to mount up at some point. And so that bolt pattern is a 4x156. So that's why we had to make the adapter on that one. We could have re-drilled over there, but we wanted to use the 4x156. This uses the 4x110s. So we decided we could maybe get in here and take a video. Now on the other cart, we popped off this speed sensing ring. Just hit them with a punch a couple of times, they pop off. We didn't do it on this one, but this is the spacer that we dropped in. We had to put in there between the Miata axle and the Mini Cooper hub. So that half-inch spacer just to preload the bearing, and it doesn't need to be anything special. We use some pipe. It's about 1/4 inch thick.